In this video, we will focus on two examples of game-changing value propositions, an older one and a more recent one. It is interesting to use older examples to illustrate business model innovation, just to make the point that this type of innovation existed before the advent of the internet. So remember the framework presented in the previous video. This framework combines price on the x-axis and the value perceived by customer on the y-axis. This allowed us to distinguish cost leadership, high-end differentiation, low-end differentiation, and then there is this upper left part of the framework. Here, the value proposition looks very appealing since it combines both a lower price and a higher perceived value. How interesting! This is a game-changing value proposition. This value proposition is so appealing to the client that the conventional rules of the game in the industry are disrupted. So let's take some example, and here comes our first example. This is how bus stops looked 40 years ago. Public transportation companies preferred to invest in buses rather than in the bus stops. But then a company introduced a game-changing strategy. This company was 𝐒𝐇𝐀𝐑𝐄, and they offered a very appealing value proposition to public transportation companies. They offered them designful bus stops for free. And not only did 𝐒𝐇𝐀𝐑𝐄 install them, but they also maintained it for free. They cleaned them and replaced all broken parts. This was an extreme game-changing value proposition for public transportation companies that delightfully agreed to enter in a 5 or 10-year contracts with 𝐒𝐇𝐀𝐑𝐄, since they didn't have any risk nor anything to lose. So the value proposition is very attractive for the public transportation company. Designful bus stops for free, this is definitely a game-changing strategy. However, this value proposition doesn't bring any revenue to 𝐒𝐇𝐀𝐑𝐄. And you know where the revenue of this company comes from. They are paid through the ads posted on the bus stops. This is how they generate revenue. So 𝐒𝐇𝐀𝐑𝐄 has several customers. The using customer, that is myself when I'm waiting for the bus. The decision-making customer, that is the transportation company. And finally, the paying customer, the company posting the ad. This is a good example of an interesting avenue for innovation that we will discuss later on, the decoupling of the using and the paying customer. A lot of internet-based business models rely on this scheme. Think about how Facebook or Google are making money. But again, the 𝐒𝐇𝐀𝐑𝐄 example is very interesting because it shows that this decoupling can exist outside of the internet. What usually happens when a game-changing business model is introduced is that this new business model becomes the reference offer in the new market that the new business model has created. By creating the new business model of ad-financed bus stops, 𝐒𝐇𝐀𝐑𝐄 has created a new market, and it has become the reference offer in this new market. Let me now give you another example of a game-changing strategy. Let's come back to our framework and let's apply it to the car industry. Think about it for a second and try to find an example of a high-end differentiation in the car industry. Here, you probably thought about BMW, Lexus, or Mercedes, or of the more recent Tesla, the high-end electric sports car. Those are all examples of high-end differentiation. The price is higher than the reference offer, but the perceived value is also much higher. Now try to think about the low-end differentiation still in the car industry. Here you will probably think about Logan, the low-cost brand of Renault, but also the Tata Nano, the world's cheapest car produced in India. So now pause the video and think about what could be a game-changing strategy in the car industry. Remember, we're looking for a value proposition with a lower price and a higher perceived value. And there is a hint. Don't look for a car anymore. Think about the usage of the car. Think about it. Even if you use your car for 2 hours a day, this still means that your car is standing still on a parking lot for over 90% of the time. Isn't this crazy? You have to pay even if you don't use it for parking? So here comes the game-changing strategy. car-sharing companies such as BlaBlaCar or Zipcar or DriveNow by BMW. BlaBlaCar is a carpooling website, and drivers post spots available on their car on the internet, and passengers purchase them online. Zipcar and DriveNow are car-sharing companies. Members pay an annual subscription fee and can reserve a car by the hour or the day. Note Zipcar's tagline, "Wheels when you want them." Actually, you don't want a car anymore, you want wheels that take you where you want, when you need it. Overall, the cost of driving the car is much lower since you pay by the hour, and the perceived value is better since you don't have to bother about parking or maintenance. So those two examples are a good illustration of a game-changing strategy. Of course, if you are a car lover, if you love to drive your BMW or your Porsche, you will probably not be attracted by Zipcar, DriveNow, or BlaBlaCar. Or if you live in the middle of nowhere, you will probably still need a car. But the idea here is that if this game-changing value proposition is attractive to a big enough segment, then it can be a successful business model. It is not killing the conventional car industry, but it can be disruptive since less customers can be attracted by buying a car. They're becoming reference offers in a new industry. But here we see the limit of this framework. The perceived value is very generic, and we would need to be more detailed if we want to understand why some customers would trade off their car for car sharing. This is exactly what we will do in the next video, in which we will talk about an interesting tool to decipher the perceived value. It is called the value curve.